The silent starport. The starport was quiet that night, too quiet for Daniel's liking. He had been a cargo pilot for years, flying from one border world to another, carrying supplies, food, or whatever paid the bills. Normally, the docks were filled with noise. Mechanics shouting, engines roaring, traders bargaining. But tonight there was nothing but silence, only the faint hum of broken lights above. Daniel walked slowly, his boots echoing against the metal floor. He had just delivered his last shipment and was ready to head back to his small freighter, but something felt wrong. He paused near an abandoned hangar, his instincts warning him. In the silence he heard it. A soft sound, a whimper, almost like a child crying. At first he thought it was his imagination, but then he heard it again, sharper this time. It was coming from the shadows between the broken crates stacked against the wall. Daniel's heart beat faster. He was not the kind of man who went looking for trouble, but something about the sound pulled him closer. He stepped carefully, hand resting on the old blaster at his side. The sound grew clearer, a mix of fear and pain. Daniel pushed aside a crate and froze. There, curled up in the darkness, was a small alien child. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim light, a pale silver blue. Her eyes were wide with terror, and her small hands clutched a glowing pendant to her chest. She looked no older than 7 in human years. Daniel crouched down, speaking softly. "Hey, it's all right, I'm not going to hurt you." The child flinched, shaking her head. She tried to speak, but her words were broken, a mix of alien tongue and a few human phrases. Daniel only understood one word, whispered again and again. "Hide." "Hide." Before he could ask more, heavy footsteps thundered at the far end of the starport. A group of armored alien guards appeared, their weapons gleaming. Their helmets glowed with red scanners, sweeping across the docks. One of them barked orders. In a harsh language searching, Daniel's eyes widened. They were hunting the child, and now he was caught in the middle. He turned back to the girl, who looked at him with tears in her glowing eyes. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please." Something inside Daniel shifted. He could have walked away, pretended he had seen nothing, let the guards take her. After all, she was not human, not his responsibility. But in that moment, he remembered his own daughter, lost years ago in a border raid. The memory cut deep, and he knew he couldn't abandon this child. The guards were getting closer, scanning the crates, weapons ready. Daniel acted fast. He scooped the child into his arms, her small frame trembling against him. He whispered, "Stay quiet," and moved quickly toward his freighter. The metal doors of the starport echoed with every step he took. He slipped behind old machinery, waiting as the guards passed. Their scanners swept dangerously close, one beam brushing his shoulder. He held his breath, pressing the child close until the guards moved on. Finally, he reached the docking bay where his old freighter waited, battered but still working. He ran up the ramp, sealing the door just as the guards noticed movement. Shouts rang out and blaster fire lit up the dock. Daniel slammed into the pilot's chair, fingers flying over controls. The ship roared to life, engines struggling. The child clung to him, whispering in fear. Outside, the guards fired at the hull, sparks flying. Daniel pushed the thrusters. The freighter lifted shakily into the air, alarms blaring. Come on, Daniel muttered, forcing the ship to rise faster. A blast struck near the fuel lines, but the shields held barely. He angled the ship upward, breaking through the starport doors and into the night sky. The stars opened before him, cold and endless. The child let out a small sob, hiding her face against his arm. Daniel looked down at her and felt the weight of what he had done. He had no idea who she was or why soldiers were hunting her. But he knew one thing. He had just made himself their enemy, and there would be no turning back. As the freighter jumped into hyperspace, Daniel whispered to himself, "What have I gotten into?" The child lifted her head, eyes glowing faintly in the dark, and for the first time she spoke clearly in human tongue. "They will kill me if you don't help." Daniel's chest tightened. His choice was sealed. He didn't just pick up a lost child. He had picked up a secret that could shake the galaxy, and somewhere out there the hunters were already coming. The Queen's heir. The freighter shook as it broke free into the cold silence of space. Warning lights blinked across the cockpit and the engines groaned under the stress of the sudden escape. Daniel held the controls tight, his jaw clenched. He had escaped the starport, but not the danger. He knew the guards would not stop. They would chase him across the stars. The small alien child sat quietly beside him. Her silver blue skin shimmered faintly in the glow of the cockpit lights. Her wide eyes followed every movement of his hands on the controls. Daniel stole a glance at her and saw fear, but also something else, an unnatural calm, like she had already seen too much for her age. He leaned back in the chair, trying to catch his breath. "All right, kid," he said softly. "Who are you? And why were they after you?" The girl hesitated, clutching the glowing pendant around her neck. For a long moment she said nothing. Then in broken but clear human words she whispered, "They want me because I am Queen's child." Daniel froze, his eyes narrowed. "Queen's child? What queen?" The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes shining with tears. "My mother, Queen of Velara." The name hit Daniel like a strike to the chest. Everyone in the galaxy knew of the Velara Queen, ruler of one of the most powerful alien empires. Her fleets were feared, her warriors unmatched. Entire wars had been fought at her command. If this child was truly her daughter, then Daniel had just stolen the most valuable being in the galaxy. He leaned back, running a hand across his face. Stars above. What have I done? The girl lowered her head. "If they catch me, the throne will fall. My mother will die. All will burn." Daniel's mind spun. He remembered the whispers he had heard on border worlds. Rumors of civil war inside the Velara Empire. Noble houses fighting, fleets burning, each side desperate to claim the throne. If the Queen's only child was missing, then the entire empire would be tearing itself apart. And now, Daniel was at the center of it. The freighter's sensors beeped, pulling him out of his thoughts. A cluster of ships was approaching from behind. Their signatures were military, fast and armed. "They found us," Daniel muttered. His hands flew over the controls, boosting the engines. The old freighter rattled, not built for speed, but he pushed it to its limit. The child held onto the chair, her small hands trembling. The comm screen lit up with a message. An alien face appeared, cold and sharp, armored in black metal. "Human pilot," the voice snarled. "You carry what belongs to us. Surrender them, child, and we may let you live." Daniel's chest tightened. He glanced at the girl, who shook her head violently. "No, they kill me. They kill my mother." Daniel turned back to the screen, his voice steady. "She doesn't belong to you. She belongs with her family." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die with her." The transmission cut, and moments later, blaster fire streaked through the black void. Explosions flared near the freighter. Daniel swerved sharply, alarm screaming. He dove into an asteroid field ahead, using the rocks as cover. Massive stones tumbled through the dark, some as big as cities. The enemy ships followed, firing relentlessly. Each blast shook the freighter's fragile frame. Daniel gritted his teeth, weaving between the asteroids. The girl gasped, her pendant glowing brighter with every passing second. Daniel glanced at it and frowned. "What is that thing?" She clutched it close. "Proof. I am heir. Only this can call her fleet." Daniel's eyes widened. So the pendant was not just jewelry, it was a key. A signal that could summon the Queen's armada, that meant enemies wanted it just as much as they wanted her. He swerved hard, barely avoiding a crash. A large asteroid loomed ahead. Cracked open with a hollow tunnel, Daniel dived into it, scraping the freighter's hull but shaking the pursuers. The enemy ships split, some following, others circling. Inside the asteroid's tunnel, darkness swallowed them. The girl's pendant lit faintly, casting silver light on the walls. Daniel slowed, the engines whining. He whispered, "Kid, do you understand what this means? If you're really her daughter, then the whole galaxy is hunting you. They'll never stop." She looked at him with steady eyes. "Then you must not stop either." Daniel almost laughed at the absurdity of it. He was a cargo pilot, not a soldier, not a hero. And yet here he was, protecting a child who might hold the fate of an empire. Outside, explosions shook the rock walls. The enemy ships had found the entrance. Daniel pushed the freighter through the tunnel, bursting out the other side, engines screaming. He spotted a narrow path toward a dead sector of space, one so empty and dangerous that most avoided it. He set the course, hoping the pursuers would not follow. The child clung to the chair, whispering in her alien tongue. Daniel didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. She was praying. As they escaped into the dead sector, Daniel looked out at the dark stars, his heart heavy. He knew he could not return to normal life now. Not after this. The girl's pendant glowed steadily, and Daniel realized one truth. This was no ordinary rescue. This was a choice that could change the galaxy, and somewhere far away, on a throne of steel and fire, the Queen of Velara was waiting. Unaware that a human pilot now held the future of her empire in his hands, fire in the sky. The asteroid field fell away behind them, but the danger did not. The freighter's sensors kept blinking red. Enemy ships were still chasing. Their numbers were fewer now, but the ones that remained were fast and deadly. Daniel gripped the controls, sweat running down his forehead. The old freighter rattled like it might fall apart at any second. Every alarm screamed at him, warning of overheating. Engines and failing shields. He ignored them. His focus stayed on the stars ahead. The alien child sat strapped in the co-pilot seat, her silver blue skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. She clutched her pendant tightly, eyes wide but unblinking. Daniel glanced at her and muttered, "Kid, you picked the wrong pilot. I haul grain, not fight war fleets." She looked at him calmly. "But you fight. You do not give me away." Daniel almost laughed, a dry, bitter laugh. "I must be losing my mind," he said, then pulled the ship into a sharp roll. A blast from behind streaked past, narrowly missing the hull. The enemy was closing in. Their lasers cut the black void with streaks of fire. Come on," Daniel growled, slamming the throttle forward. The freighter's engines roared, metal straining. Lights flickered across the panels, warning him the ship could not hold much longer. The enemy comms crackled to life again. A harsh voice filled the cabin. "Human, surrender the child, you cannot escape." Daniel switched the channel off. "Yeah, heard that before," he muttered. He veered the ship downward toward a glowing nebula, thick with plasma storms. It was suicide to enter, but suicide was better than surrender. The child gasped softly as lightning flashed inside the swirling nebula, but Daniel pressed forward. "Hang on," he said. His hands shook on the controls as the freighter plunged into the storm. Inside, chaos erupted. Plasma waves battered the ship. Lightning arced across the hull. The shields flared weakly. Each hit rattled the freighter until Daniel thought the entire frame would shatter. But the storm also blinded the enemy. Their scanners flickered, their shots went wide. For a few heartbeats, Daniel felt hope. Maybe he had shaken them. Then a blast tore through the wing, the ship lurched violently, warning sirens howled. The child cried out, holding onto the seat. Daniel slammed controls, trying to stabilize. "Hold together, old girl, just a little longer," he begged the freighter. His eyes darted to the child. "You all right?" She nodded shakily, eyes glowing. "I trust you," she whispered. Her words cut through the storm louder than any alarm. Daniel swallowed hard. His hands tightened on the controls. He didn't know why this child trusted him so deeply, but he knew he couldn't let her down. More enemy ships appeared in the storm, their black hulls glowing in flashes of lightning. They fired relentlessly, blasts exploding too close. Daniel jerked the ship from side to side, dodging between bolts of plasma. One blast struck the rear. Flames erupted. Daniel cursed, struggling to keep control. Smoke filled the cockpit. He coughed, eyes burning. "If we survive this, I'm never taking another job in my life," he muttered. The child suddenly touched the glowing pendant. It pulsed brighter, sending waves of silver light through the cabin. Daniel's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" Her voice was soft, almost like a chant. "It listens. It protects." The pendant released a shock of energy. The storm around them shifted. A path of calm space opened through the plasma, just wide enough for their ship. Daniel didn't question it. He pushed the freighter forward, flying through. The opening as if the storm itself obeyed the child's call. Behind them, enemy ships tried to follow, but the storm swallowed them. Lightning struck their hulls. Explosions lit the nebula. One by one, their signals vanished. Daniel finally broke free of the storm, stars opening wide again. His freighter was smoking, engines weak, but still flying. He leaned back, exhausted. His chest rose and fell as he struggled to breathe. "We made it," he whispered. The child sat silently, still holding the glowing pendant, her face pale but steady. She turned her eyes to him. "You saved me again." Daniel shook his head. "No, kid. That was you. Whatever that thing is. It's more powerful than I can understand." He glanced at the pendant, then back at her. "And now I know for sure. You really are the Queen's child." For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Only the sound of damaged engines filled the air. Daniel rubbed his temples. "But saving you doesn't mean much if the whole galaxy is tearing itself apart over you." The child whispered, "If I die, the galaxy burns forever. If I live, peace is possible." Daniel stared at her, the weight of her words heavy. He thought of all the blood spilled, all the innocent lives lost in endless wars. He thought of his own daughter gone to senseless violence, maybe. Just maybe. Saving this child wasn't only about her. Maybe it was about giving the galaxy something better. The comms beeped suddenly. A new signal. Not enemy. A deep, commanding voice filled the cockpit. "Unknown freighter, you carry someone important. Identify yourself." Daniel's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. It was not a soldier, not a pirate, but someone far more dangerous. It was the voice of a warlord, one of the most feared leaders of the enemy houses, and he had found them. Daniel's hands shook on the controls. His eyes flicked to the child, who now looked more afraid than ever. The freighter was too damaged to fight, too slow to run. He had nowhere to go. The stars outside filled with the shadows of massive warships closing in, their weapons glowing like the fire of dying suns. The fight was not over. It was only beginning. The hidden betrayal, the warlord's fleet surrounded the freighter like wolves around a wounded prey. His ships were vast, their black hulls marked with crimson symbols of conquest. Daniel's battered freighter looked like a dying bird caught in a storm. The comm crackled again. The warlord's voice was deep, commanding. "Human pilot, you cannot run. Hand over the child and I may let you live." Daniel stared at the screen, sweat dripping down his temple. His ship was broken, shields fading, engines nearly dead. He could not fight, he could not flee. The only thing he had left was choice. The child clutched her pendant, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Don't give me," she whispered. "He kills my mother. He burns the stars." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had already risked his life for her. He wasn't about to hand her over now, but he also knew if he defied the warlord here, they would both die. Before Daniel could answer, another signal broke through the comm, a familiar voice, low and urgent. "Daniel, it's me, Rogan, remember me?" Daniel blinked. Recognition struck. Rogan was an old smuggler friend, a man Daniel had once flown with years ago. They had shared drinks, traded cargo, and even saved each other's lives once. Daniel had thought he was long gone. "Rogan," Daniel muttered, relief mixing with confusion. "How the hell are you here?" On the screen, Rogan's scarred face appeared. "I've been running with rebels," he said quickly. "We've been fighting against the warlord's forces. Listen, bring the girl to us. We can protect her, we know what she is, we'll keep her safe." The child's eyes narrowed. She shook her head firmly. "No, no rebels. They are liars. They want throne." Daniel felt torn. Rogan was someone he trusted, someone who had once been a brother in arms. But the girl's warning echoed in his head. Was this a trap? Outside, the warlord's fleet waited, engines glowing like the breath of dragons. If Daniel hesitated too long, they would strike. He took a breath. "Rogan, you promise she'll be safe?" Rogan leaned close to the screen, his voice softer. "Now, safe, brother. I swear it on my life, but you must hurry. The warlord will kill you both if you stay. Dock with my ship. I'll cover you." Daniel hesitated only a moment before steering the freighter toward Rogan's smaller vessel, a rebel ship painted in worn colors. It extended a docking arm, pulling his damaged freighter inside. When the docking doors sealed, Daniel let out a shaky breath. Rogan was already waiting in the airlock, broad-shouldered, grinning like old times. He clapped Daniel on the back. "You haven't changed a bit, still diving headfirst into fire." Daniel smirked weakly. "You always said trouble followed me. Looks like you were right." Rogan's eyes drifted to the child. His grin widened. But something about it felt wrong, too sharp, too eager. He bent down, voice gentle. "So this is the little star everyone's fighting over." The girl stepped back, clutching her pendant tighter. Daniel noticed her trembling. He frowned. "Easy. Rogan, she's been through hell." Rogan nodded. Of course, she'll be safe now." He gestured for them to follow, leading them deeper into the rebel ship. The halls smelled of oil and metal. Rebels moved about, armed and armored. Some glanced curiously at the child, others smirked. Daniel felt unease growing in his gut. Finally, Rogan brought them into a chamber lit with harsh lights. A table stood at the center, maps and star charts scattered across it. A few rebel leaders stood waiting. Their eyes locked on the child immediately. Rogan's voice hardened as he placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Brother, you did well. You brought us the key to ending the war." Daniel's stomach dropped. He looked at the rebels, who were already whispering to each other. One spoke aloud. "With her pendant, we can call the Queen's fleet, then we take the throne for ourselves." The child's eyes widened in horror. She looked up at Daniel, whispering, "Betrayal." Daniel's fists clenched. His old friend Rogan had lied. He had not saved them. He had delivered them into another trap. Daniel took a step back, placing himself between the rebels and the child. His voice was sharp. "You said you'd protect her." Rogan's smile faded into cold steel. "Protection? No, brother. This is bigger than you or me. With her in our hands, the Queen's reign ends and the rebels rise. Think about it. We'll have power beyond measure." Daniel shook his head, anger boiling. "Power? She's a child, not a weapon." Rogan's face hardened. "She's the future, Daniel, and if you can't see that, you're a fool." The rebels stepped forward, weapons raised. Daniel's hand went to his blaster. His heart pounded. He had trusted Rogan, but now that trust was ash. The child clung to his leg, whispering, "Don't let them take me." Daniel's voice was low but steady. "They'll have to kill me first." The room froze, the tension sharp as a blade. Then chaos erupted. Daniel drew his blaster, firing at the lights. Darkness swallowed. "The chamber!" Shouts rang out. Lasers flashed. Rebels stumbled in confusion. Grabbing the child, Daniel ran. His boots pounded against the metal floors as alarms blared. Rogan's furious voice echoed behind him. "Daniel, don't be a fool. You can't escape us all." But Daniel didn't stop. He pushed through corridors, dodging fire. Rebels poured after them. The child's pendant glowed brighter, lighting their path. Finally, they reached the hangar. Daniel spotted a small shuttle, half repaired but functional. He shoved the child inside, then fired at the clamps until they snapped. The shuttle roared to life, engine sputtering. As rebels stormed into the hangar, Daniel blasted the controls, sealing the doors behind him. The shuttle shot free into space, leaving Rogan's furious screams behind. Breathing hard, Daniel glanced at the child. Her eyes shone with tears. "You saved me again," she whispered. Daniel shook his head, voice rough. "No, kid, you saved me. You showed me who to trust," but deep inside, his chest ached. He had lost an old friend tonight, lost him to greed and hunger for power, and he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not stop until they both were caught, and somewhere, far away, the warlord still waited, the heart of the enemy. The shuttle drifted through the endless dark, its engines weak but steady. Daniel sat at the controls, his jaw tight. His mind burned with the image of Rogan's betrayal. The sting of losing an old friend hurt. But the truth cut deeper. No one could be trusted. Not rebels. Not warlords. Not smugglers. Everyone wanted the child for power. The girl sat quietly beside him, her glowing pendant faintly lighting the cabin. She stared out at the stars with wide, tired eyes. Daniel glanced at her and muttered, "Kid, we can't keep running. They'll chase us forever." She turned to him, voice soft. "Then we must end it." Daniel frowned. "End it? How?" Her eyes shone like silver fire. "Take me to the capital. Take me to my mother." Daniel nearly choked. "The capital? Are you out of your mind? That's the heart of the warlord's empire. Fleets, armies, death at every corner. But the girl shook her head, calm as stone. "If I return, war ends. My mother's throne is safe. The traitors lose." Daniel leaned back, rubbing his face. "That's suicide, kid. A cargo pilot and a child walking into the lion's den." She reached for his hand, small and trembling but steady. "You are not just a pilot. You are the only one who chose to protect me, even when you could walk away." Her words sank deep. Daniel thought of his daughter, gone years ago. If someone had saved her that night, if someone had stood up for her, he clenched his fists. "All right then, if we're doing this, we're doing it my way." He set the course. The shuttle groaned, jumping into hyperspace, and for the first time since the chase began, Daniel felt a strange clarity. He was heading into certain death, but he was no longer running. He was walking straight into the fire. Hours later, the shuttle emerged from hyperspace, and before them stretched the capital world of the enemy empire, a planet covered in towering cities of black stone and burning lights. The skies above it swarmed with warships, their numbers endless. Daniel's heart pounded. "This is madness," he whispered. The child's pendant glowed brighter, pulsing like a beacon, almost as if it was calling to the world below. A patrol ship quickly spotted them. Its lights locked onto their small shuttle. A sharp voice came over the comm. "Unidentified craft. State your purpose or be destroyed." Daniel's throat tightened. He pressed the comm, voice steady. "I have the Queen's heir." Silence followed. Then chaos erupted across the channel, voices arguing, some calling it a trick, others demanding proof. Finally, the voice returned, tense. "Dock at Base 7, any deception and you will be executed." Daniel cut the channel, exhaling hard. "Well, kid, no turning back now." The shuttle descended through burning skies, past towers that stretched into clouds. People filled the streets below, their faces grim. Armored soldiers marched in endless lines. The city was alive with war. They landed in the bay. Soldiers surrounded them instantly. Weapons raised. Daniel stepped out slowly, holding the child in his arms. The crowd went silent, gasps rippling through them. Many dropped to their knees, whispers spreading. The heir, the Queen's child. For the first time, Daniel saw hope in their faces, hope he hadn't seen anywhere in this galaxy. But then the silence broke. A tall figure stepped forward, armored in black with a blade at his side. The warlord himself. His eyes burned with cold fire. His voice echoed through the bay. "So, the lost heir returns, carried by a human fool." Daniel's grip tightened on the child. He stood firm, though every instinct told him to run. The warlord's blade gleamed as he stepped closer. "Give her to me, human, and I might spare your life." The people watched, their eyes darting between Daniel and the warlord. Soldiers raised their weapons, tension sharp as glass. Daniel's voice was steady. "No, she's not yours to claim. She belongs to her mother, to the throne." A murmur spread through the crowd. The warlord's face twisted in rage. He raised his blade, ready to strike. The child pressed closer, to Daniel, whispering, "Don't let go." Daniel lifted his chin. He had no weapon strong enough, no army behind him, only his voice and his will. He shouted so all could hear, "Look at her. She is your true heir, not him, not the traitors. She is proof the Queen's line still stands." The people gasped. Soldiers faltered. Whispers turned to shouts. The heir lives!" The warlord roared. "Silence! She dies, and the throne is mine!" He lunged forward, blade flashing, but before the strike fell, citizens surged. Between them, men, women, even soldiers moved to block his path. The crowd shouted as one, "Protect the heir!" The warlord's eyes burned with fury. He swung his blade at the people, but more pressed in. Some soldiers dropped their weapons, refusing to fight. The child's pendant glowed like a sun, its light filling the bay. Daniel held her high, shouting, No more war, no more lies. The true heir is here. The crowd erupted, thousands of voices shaking the city. For the first time, Daniel saw the warlord hesitate, his power cracking as the people turned against him. And high above, in the burning skies, massive ships broke through the clouds. The Queen's fleet had arrived, drawn by the pendant's call. The warlord's blade lowered, his fury turned to fear. He looked up at the sky, realizing his end was near. Daniel's chest rose and fell, sweat dripping down his face. He had walked into the lion's den and somehow lived, but the battle was not finished. The Queen herself had yet to appear, and the final choice, the final stand was still to come. The human stand. The sky above the capital burned with light. The Queen's fleet filled the heavens, vast warships blotting out the stars. Their silver hulls glowed with power, their weapons ready. Every eye in the city turned upward, hope and fear clashing in their faces. Daniel stood in the docking bay, holding the child close. His heart thundered, his ship was gone, his strength fading. Yet he stood taller than ever before. Around him, the people whispered and shouted. The heir is alive. The warlord's fury shook the air. His blade gleamed crimson as he pointed at Daniel. This human is a thief, a liar. He carries a false child to trick you all. But the pendant in the girl's hands pulsed brighter, silver light spreading across the bay. The crowd gasped. Many dropped to their knees. Their voices rose as one. The heir! The heir! The warlord snarled. Soldiers hesitated, some lowering their weapons. He bellowed to them, "Obey me!" Cut them down. Yet none moved. Not one soldier stepped forward. Instead, all eyes fixed on Daniel, the human standing against the might of empires. Daniel's throat was dry, but his voice rang clear. You've bled this world, stolen its hope. You thought fear would keep them silent, but they've seen the truth. They've seen her, and you can't kill the truth. The people roared, the sound rolling like thunder. The warlord's face twisted, his power slipping. He turned, his rage on Daniel. Then I will kill you myself. He charged, blade slicing the air. Daniel pushed the girl behind him and drew his blaster. He fired, but the warlord's armor deflected the shots. Sparks flew. Daniel kept firing, refusing to back down. The warlord struck, his blade slashing across Daniel's chest plate. Pain seared. Daniel staggered but did not fall. He raised his blaster again, eyes locked with the warlord's. You'll have to kill me before you touch her. The crowd screamed. Soldiers shouted. The clash of two worlds had come down to this. One human against the warlord. The warlord swung again, fury in his eyes. Daniel dodged barely, firing at the ground near his feet. Smoke and sparks filled the bay. The child's pendant glowed brighter, blinding light filling the room. Through the haze, a voice thundered, not from Daniel or the warlord, but from above. A ship descended, massive and gleaming. Its ramp lowered, and out stepped the Queen of Velara herself. Her presence silenced all, tall and regal. Her armor shone like silver fire. Her eyes glowed the same as the child's. Her voice carried across the bay. Enough. The warlord froze, his blade lowering. The crowd dropped to their knees. Soldiers bowed. Even rebels hiding in the shadows trembled. Daniel turned, breathing hard. The girl broke free from his arms and ran to the Queen. Her small hands clutched the Queen's robes. Mother, she cried. The Queen knelt, lifting the child gently into her arms, her eyes softened, tears glimmering. For a moment all war stilled. Then the Queen rose, holding her child high. The heir lives, she declared. The true line stands, and this war ends tonight. The people erupted in cheers. Their voices shook the walls. The warlord's face turned pale, his power gone in a single heartbeat. Desperate, he raised his blade again. No, I will not bow. She dies, and I take the throne. He lunged toward the Queen, but Daniel stepped between them, his chest bleeding, his hands shaking, but his voice strong. Not while I still breathe, the warlord roared, swinging down with all his strength. Daniel raised his blaster, firing point blank. The blast struck true. The warlord's blade fell from his hands, his body crashed to the floor lifeless. Silence held the bay, broken only by Daniel's ragged breath. He swayed, ready to collapse. The Queen's voice rang out again. This human risked his life, for my child. For that, he is not our enemy, he is our ally. The people cheered louder. Soldiers lifted their weapons high in salute. The Queen's fleet thundered above, firing into the skies in a salute of light. Daniel dropped to one knee, exhausted. His vision blurred. The girl ran back to him, tears streaming. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "You didn't let go." "You never let go," Daniel smiled faintly, though his strength was gone. "I told you. They'd have to kill me first." The Queen stepped closer, her gaze heavy with respect. "You ended what my fleets could not, human. You ended a war." Daniel's eyes closed, not from death but from exhaustion. He had stood against empires, and somehow he had not fallen. Above, the first dawn broke across the capital, a dawn the people had not seen in years, and in their hearts they knew peace had come, because one man stood when all others bowed. The end of war. The warlord's body lay still on the cold floor, his blade shattered, his empire broken. The bay echoed with the cheers of thousands, voices rising like thunder. Above them, the Queen's fleet hovered in silence, their weapons no longer aimed for destruction, but for protection. Daniel swayed on his feet, blood dripping from his wound. His strength nearly gone, the child clung to him tightly, refusing to let go. Her glowing eyes looked up at him with gratitude. "You kept me safe," she whispered. Daniel gave a weak smile. "Guess I did all right for a cargo pilot." His knees buckled and he dropped to the ground, his vision blurred, the noise of the crowd fading like a distant storm. But before he collapsed fully, the Queen herself stepped forward, her silver armor gleaming. She placed her hand on his shoulder, her voice calm yet powerful. "Rise, human. You have done what none in this galaxy could do. You saved my daughter, and in doing so you saved us all." Her words carried across the bay. The people fell silent, hanging on every syllable. Daniel looked up at her, pain in his eyes but also stubborn fire. "I only did what was right." The Queen's gaze softened. For all her power and might, in that moment she was simply a mother who had been given her child back. She lifted the girl into her arms, holding her close. "Because of you, my bloodline continues. Because of you, this war ends." The pendant in the child's hands glowed brighter than ever. Its light stretched across the city, touching every heart. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Civilians fell to their knees, and even the sky seemed to clear. The endless war that had consumed them was finally breaking. Daniel's head swam. He had risked everything, and somehow lived. But his mind kept circling the same thought. Peace. Could it really last? Could one act truly end centuries of blood? The Queen seemed to sense his doubt. She turned to the crowd, raising her voice. "Let it be known across every world, the war is over. The fighting ends. Any who raise their blade against this peace will face me and my fleet. The galaxy will heal." The cheers returned, louder, stronger. The sound shook the walls and rolled through the streets outside. A roar of relief, of joy, of hope. Daniel tried to rise, but his body gave out. He dropped to one knee again, his breath ragged. Queen knelt beside him, her eyes sharp. "You need care," she said firmly. She motioned to her healers. "See that he lives." The healers rushed forward, pressing patches against his wound. Pain stabbed through him, but he forced a grin. "Don't bother with me too much. Just make sure the kid is safe." The girl knelt by his side, holding his hand tightly. "I'm safe because of you," she whispered, tears glowing in her silver eyes. "You are my protector." Daniel's chest tightened. He had lost a daughter once, yet here was another child clinging to him as though he had always been her guardian. In her small voice, he heard something he thought he would never hear again. "Family," the Queen watched this quietly. Then she spoke, her words heavy with meaning. "From this day you are not only a protector, you are a friend of the crown. You will be honored as one who ended the war." Daniel shook his head faintly. "I don't need honor, just a chance to rest." But the people would not allow him to fade into the crowd. Word spread quickly. "The human who saved the heir." Songs began in the streets. Chants echoed in the towers. His name traveled faster than ships ever could as healers carried him toward the Queen's flagship. Daniel gazed out at the capital city. For the first time, it wasn't burning. It was alive with hope. And he realized something. Sometimes peace didn't come from fleets or thrones. Sometimes it came from one person refusing to let go. Hours later, aboard the Queen's flagship, Daniel rested in a chamber unlike anything he had known. Silver walls glowed with gentle light. He lay on a soft bed as healers checked his wounds. The child sat nearby, refusing to leave his side. The Queen entered quietly, her presence commanding yet gentle. She placed a hand over her daughter's shoulder. "Sleep, little one," she said softly. But the child shook her head. "Not until he wakes." Daniel opened one eye and chuckled weakly. "I'm not dead yet, kid." The girl smiled. A smile that shone brighter than her pendant. Daniel felt warmth spread in his chest. For all he had lost, he had found something again. Not riches, not glory, but a bond. The Queen looked at him and spoke in a voice only he could hear. "You ended a conflict that burned for decades. No army, no fleet, no general could do what you did. Do you understand what that means?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I didn't plan any of this. I just couldn't walk away." The Queen nodded, her eyes sharp. "And that is why you succeeded. Humanity has given us what we could not give ourselves. Courage without greed." Daniel closed his eyes, her words echoing in his mind. Maybe it was true. Maybe he had done more than just save a child. Maybe he had changed a galaxy. The next day, the warlord's banners were torn down across the city. His armies scattered. Some fled, some surrendered. The people rebuilt. For the first time in living memory, there was no fear in their eyes. At the heart of it all stood a story of a human pilot who risked his life for an alien child, a man who faced fleets, betrayal, and death itself, and in the end gave the galaxy something greater than victory. He gave them peace. Daniel never asked for glory, never asked for riches, but everywhere he went, whispers followed. That's him, the human who saved the heir. And though he smiled and brushed it off, deep inside he carried the truth. He had done it for one reason only, because no child, no matter their world, should be left to die alone.